What up, Marsh Pod? We are recording this on the heels of the latest of the 4 games. Showtime has just defeated Bay Area Breakers to advance to Tuesday. They go 3-0 against Bay Area. We're going to go through every game of the last 2 days, all 8 of them. Immediate reaction from each 2 teams. So 16 teams total. Let's start with Showtime Bay Area. Let's go with the winners. This was a much-needed production night from more guys that they've been looking for and that should have probably been given these opportunities all season long. Are any of the guys who scored 10 or more points, that's Jucka G, Jackson McLean, Nick Moss, Corey Yams, elite dudes? Maybe, maybe not. I think Corey's closer to it than the rest. But they each did exactly what they needed to. Meanwhile, they got great defense from Yams, G, and McLean. They had 9 steals combined, and then as a team, they just had 3 turnovers. That positive turnover battle is it's not what won this game, but it's what helped them. But this was what they needed. They had not gotten these types of performances since Bronny left. This is what they needed, and they got exactly that. Meanwhile, Bay Area, what was the one concern about this team? Do they have a guy late in the game they can turn to for the basketball? They lacked it all season, and down the stretch of this one, it cost them. They were down 1 possession with like under a minute and a half to play. And this wasn't the last possession, but there was Caden Shipp is ISOing. He looks like he's backing it out. They've cleared out the entire left side. He's on the left wing. He backs it out, and instead, I think he had like 14 seconds to shoot. Instead of just going at his defender, he swings it around, and it ends up, I think it was Adonis Knight, who takes a mid-range jumper from the right free throw line extended, and he misses. And 2 of the final 3 possessions of this game, when this game was still within reach, the ball didn't go to Caden Shipp for a shot. He took 1 shot. It was an inbound immediate pass. They did a really bad job of getting the ball to Caden Shipp. My question is twofold. Is it Caden Shipp that doesn't want to take over, and that's why he's not doing this at the end of a game? Or had they not figured out a way to allow him to do that and force the ball into his hands? The answer to either of those, if it's one of those 2 things, doesn't matter which one it is, not one is better than the rest. That's the challenge they had all season, and ultimately it's what cost them. Best Coast APAC. Best Coast, look, they are who we thought they were. They're a team that relies on LDO when he's not having a good day, and he was not with an injured wrist. This is what happens. So, not surprised at all that Best Coast Ballers is out of this tournament in the first round, losing to Asia Pacific. That's it. Not shocked one bit. Meanwhile, APAC, this is a frisky team. They were rolling today. Kai Newby looked awesome. Dinsung Jang was phenomenal. And Steven George was fantastic. They're a deep team. They don't have a star, but they had those 3 dudes who played like it. Dang, without question, was the most surprising of the 3, considering what you'd expect out of his production. But Steven George was a dominant big. He had one of the best dominant big men performances of the weekend. That's important. And as they move on, they're going to face Yacht Club. They're going to need him. And he played really well in this one. All right, Gotham 5 reigning trays. Gotham 5, look, there's their team that lives and dies on the 3. And in this one, that's exactly what happened. They died on it. Mackenzie Mbako was great, but he went 1 of 7 from deep. I think all of his misses were from deep, if not the vast majority of them. He was incredible, and he's been incredible for the close of the season. But this team is very reminiscent of the 2017 Rockets. They're a good team that just went cold from deep at the worst possible time, and that's what happened for them. Meanwhile, reigning trays, Nick Moss carried this team. Yeah, Jaffet scored the most points. Yeah, he's all-world B team. But Nick Beal was the reason they are advancing here. This team did not string together throughout the regular season a lot of great performances for long stretches, but they've looked really good today. This was a good win. It's not a surprising upset. They did exactly what you were hoping they would do, and they get the W. All right, Beast versus DMV. Beast. Levin Cutler was phenomenal tonight. And, yeah, maybe he isn't deserving of all-world B team, but he sure looked like it tonight. Him and Fareed Redmond looked like stars. And the question had been, are they going to be stars? They were. Their defense remains elite. That's not a surprise. But they can win this thing because of Levin Cutler, and I still think he needs to get more minutes. They're going up against a team that's really reliant on Lorenzo Phenom. I think that's a great matchup for them for Beasts of the East. But Levin Cutler needs to play 32 minutes, and I can't be told otherwise. Meanwhile, DMV, why was this a win? Because Levin Cutler held Nick Hugo in check. I think he was 7 of 18, inefficient. He often tried to go off the dribble. It's not a strong suit of his, and Cutler's too good of a defender in space to allow that to happen. DMV was okay from deep. They're a team that really lives and dies on the three. They were fine. But as the Beast could turn to Cutler and Redmond to carry this team, Nick Hugo, as we've said, he's a very unique number one guy, and he's not a number one guy that's shown traditionally can carry an offensive load, and tonight he didn't. H-Town Yacht Club, 6 vs. 3 upset. We'll start with the losers, H-Town. Our concerns were always that they didn't have a go-to guy when needed, and they got some big performances tonight from Vincent Magic. Thompson played well. Carter played well. They had a chance to win this thing, and a 2-point loss, the hard immediate reaction is, well, you got to find some reason why they lost, and I think the fact of the matter for H-Town is they just lost. That's a good game. Either team could have pulled this out, and they just lost. I don't think you go back to the drawing board. The only thing you go back to is saying we need consistency from start through end of season. I think they're going to get that. So they've got some rebuilding to do, but they've got good pieces in place for next season that I think they feel confident about, or at least they should. Yacht Club, meanwhile, when Adam Max came back, the first thing I said was I think this team is scary. They have a really great big man rotation that mattered against H-Town. It's going to matter for them against Asia Pacific in the next round. This is a really good basketball team that's now playing like it. And they picked the right time to start being good. And for the last about month of the season, they've been really good. Bianco also was awesome, including the game-winning dunk. But with Adam Max, Tamir Johnson, Tyshawn Easom, it's a big man rotation that's very concerning for the opposition. All right, OGs beyond the arc. OGs, we finally get the massive DJ Wagner game. We've been waiting all season for this, and it finally came. 34 points, 3 assists, 5 boards. This was his best game. Every single knock I've had on him has been, he's awesome, but you know he's going to get you between 20 and 23. And that's great, but it's not elite. It's elite, but it's not jaw-dropping. He was jaw-dropping tonight. Also worth noting, surprise rotation changes. Less Loftus, less Quinney, more Maverick Jackson-Jones. So Dodge has been having to change things up, and she did it, and it paid off. And this was also a really great matchup for Big Vic, and he looked like it, right? Yeah, Tyson Simpson, which we'll get to in a second, had a phenomenal game. But Tyson Simpson being a post-oriented player allowed Victorious Ilgauskas, to be in the paint where he's at his best. In the next round, when they go up against reigning Trays, I'm not sure that's going to be the case, and that's going to be a questioning matchup. Beyond the arch, we knew what we were going to get from Tyson. We got exactly that. This team, though, has lacked a second star all season. It's what separates the teams that advance and the teams that don't. Do they have secondary or tertiary guys that can carry the load? Beyond the arch doesn't, and that's why they're walking out, and Tyson Simpson's moving on. Rocky Mountain versus Bad Boys. This is probably the one matchup where what we just said is not true. Rocky has so many layers of defense, right? They've got Justin Bell. You know you're going to get a good game. You expect he's going to get a good game. Ireland Early is going to be an efficient three-point shooter. Lucas Banks is going to do a lot of things at a lot of different spots, and Daquan McDougal is going to anchor this team. None of those things happened. They've survived this season. They had the best record in the conference because the likelihood of all of those things not happening was low, and it hadn't happened yet. Against Bad Boys, it did, and credit to Bad Boys for pulling that off. But that's exactly what happened. They got a slow start. They had to dig themselves out of it. They never could. They got to the cusp of it multiple times. They couldn't get over the hump. That's why they're going home. It's disappointing. It's why a one-game elimination is always tough to judge everything on, but it's the exact worst-case scenario that could possibly happen is exactly what happened. Bad Boys, this is probably the best that Lorenzo Phenom has looked all season. I don't think that's much for debate. He was efficient, got to the spots he wanted to, he was successful against McDougal. He's going to have a good matchup, tough matchup in the second round against the originators. But if this is the version of Lorenzo Phenom that shows up, you have to feel confident. I don't know that that's going to happen, especially against a better defensive big in the next round, but that's how they got here. The best game of Lorenzo Phenom's career was tonight. Southeast, Lone Star, Southeast, look, Terrell Pearson was phenomenal. Yeah, Trey Burner was great. He carried this team. He was the avalanche of the third quarter that pulled this thing away. But 12 points in 12 minutes from Terrell Pearson. You would want him to get more minutes. This is a really good rotation in the backcourt. It's tough to do that. But they win this game because of Terrell Pearson carrying the non-Trey Turner minutes in the second quarter that kept them in it, and then kind of pushing them over the ledge in the third and the fourth. Other side, Lone Star, look, they couldn't survive the avalanche in the third, but what plagued them and what has plagued them for basically the entire second half of the season is what happened tonight. They didn't get a great night from Nindy Gibson. Jason Miguez was extremely inefficient, and the guys that they've needed to come up big have not. And so now as they head into the offseason, you just need to really figure out, how does this team stay consistent? How do you get coaching staff to be consistent? How do you maintain that your guys can survive a 30-game regular season plus playoff games? They didn't do that. They didn't do that at all, and that's why they're going home. Although, you know what? I think this is a good thing. I'm glad they're going home. Why? Because they were awful the second half of the season. 2 wins since mid-May. They didn't deserve to advance. Southeast Select did, and thank God that they're actually moving on. Huge slate on Tuesday. 4 games again. We start at 5 p.m. Gear up, man. This is why we're here. We got Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It is just an all-out blitz of SimWorld hoops to close out the season. It should be good, and we'll talk to you then.